everyone. This is the fourth installment of the Unfadeable series with myself, and I am here with Mike Kingston. How are you doing, Mike?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, of course. So, of course, you're part of Headlocked Comic. Well, you started Headlocked Comic, and today we're discussing something really special, really new. It's called Friday Night Bigfoot, is if that's correct.
That is correct.
Let's talk about that a little bit, man.
Um, so I do a series called Tales from the Road, where I co-create different comics with various wrestlers. And in one of the first stories I did a six-page story with Gangrel, and we did a story about a trainer or a promoter who trains Bigfoot to wrestle. And we had a lot of fun with it. It was a fun little story, and we just kept talking about it. Every time we get together, we talk about what we could do. We could do more or whatever. So I was like, why don't we just, what if we made it a series? So, the idea of Tales from the Road is they all sort of happen in theory in like sort of canon in the Headlock universe or whatever. But so we kind of pulled this story out, and we're doing just sort of building this whole world around it, and we're gonna have some fun with it.
That's awesome because I was actually really curious because the day we met, you were actually telling me about that being one of your stories in your Tales of the Road booklets. And yeah, I was really wanting to know how much of this is coming off of that original story. And yeah, it sounds like you're really expanding on that, and that's really cool. And so you said you're making it with Gangrel, yes?
Yes. Yep.
Uh, yeah, that's actually something that I find really fascinating as like an entire aspect of your career is that you are a writer, you love telling stories, but you also love telling stories with people who also love to tell stories, and that just so happens to a lot of times be professional wrestlers. And so yeah, tell me about what it's like working with Gangrel.
He's super, super easy.
Yeah.
So much fun. One of the nicest guys, just an absolute sweetheart. I met him. Uh, I met him at one show, and we were just, I mean, within minutes, it was just, we just kind of gelled and we talked, and, just such an easy guy. And it was cool because we were both guests on Starcast in Australia earlier this year, so we got to spend some time together
Wow.
while we were there, talking and whatever. So I really wanted to do this for a while. It's funny. So, the initial story came out. We conceived the initial story, and then we had a company that was interested in it. It was a startup for digital comics, and they were going to pay us to produce it.
All right.
And it was right before the pandemic. And then once the pandemic hit, like all the investors pulled out, which is insane because that was your
Yeah.
moment, right? The
Yeah,
shops
that
are all
feels like
closed.
the
Like
appropriate time to do that. Yeah.
that would have been your moment. But I don't know. Somehow the way my life experience has sort of told me that somehow just the only people that end up with money are the ones that should never have it. Um,
Yeah, it
but
feels like that sometimes.
but yeah, so so then we were kind of, just trying to figure out. So we put the short in volume one, and then that was, it was well received, and then we just kept talking about it, and then just trying to find the right time to do it. So I mean, it's hard for me just as a guy, one guy who publishes multiple titles, and I do a lot of shows and stuff. So my timing is very limited, and then Tony Gregori, who's an excellent artist. He did some of the Lucha Underground comics when they had them, the four issues that they did. He he's done Rick and Morty for IDW. He's got a nice little uh, you know career and
Yeah.
resume, portfolio, whatever. And he wanted to do the art on it. He was super super into the story. So then I had to kind of wait for his schedule to clear up a little bit, and then and it's always tricky, right? Because as soon as the big boys come calling, then maybe you got to dip out for a couple of weeks to bang out a deadline or something. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so he's full speed ahead on it. He actually sent me 2 pages today for it. So Yeah, it's just a lot of world building in this one, kind of setting the stage because it takes place in 1985 in Portland. Just building the roster of people around Bigfoot and the sort of circumstances around the promotion that led to Bigfoot becoming, becoming a part of this. And
Yeah.
it'll be fun.
Yeah, sounds fun. Like I'm really excited. Like I plan on backing this in a couple paychecks, you know. Um, I read that you wrote the term the shoot job, which I really like that terminology, you know. That keeps it private, but also people know what you're talking about. I got myself a new shoot job as well, and I plan on doing some port for your backing as well after this episode. And so
Jobs are jobs are tricky for creators. I mean,
they can
it's
be.
it's hard because you on some level, like I like security, and I mean, as long as I've been making comics, I've always had a job, and I don't have like a little job. I have a big job.
Mhm.
I manage a fleet of truck drivers for Target. I've managed warehouses. Like I have like sort of high level management jobs for high volume distribution companies and stuff. So it's nuts. I will tell you today because it's Black Friday, and
Mm.
I work for a trucking company, and we work for Target, and so this is Target's biggest week of the year, Black Friday. So
Yeah.
I have not been I have not been to sleep since yesterday afternoon. So it's because it's hectic, you know. But when COVID hit and so many of my creative friends lost their income, you know, I had income. I like not ever having to worry about my lights being turned off or not being able to make my mortgage. I know
Yeah.
that's secure, and then it allows me to take some risks. I can take some financial risks. I can maybe go to a show that I'm on the fence about, and then not have to worry about, hey, I can't pay my electric bill
Mm.
you know. So
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
that's
it's
really
tough.
interesting.
A lot of people are sort of in a hurry to dump the job, and I get it.
Ah,
Because
yeah.
honestly, right? Like, because you want to be an artist and you want to kind of go all in, and but also, I mean, and there's a side, there's a negative to that too, because it slows down what I can do, the amount of work I can do. And sometimes, in the field that I'm in, like this week, you know, it just, if they want more than I have scheduled to give them, I have to give that to them. So it's it's tough. You're sort of just tiptoeing a line, but it's allowed me to get this far, so I can't
Yeah. It's
completely hate it, but I definitely think about sometimes what I could have done if I had all that time to just create.
yeah. I understand, man. Like I'm taking on my first full-time job since starting this whole brand thing, you know. And going a little bit off track, but I just got to ask in this moment, uh what keeps you from getting too comfortable with the day job and you just keep adding on to Headlocked comic? You won't relent, you know.
Well, for a long time it was insurance, and that's not a problem anymore. Now I'm looking for a little stability, and it's hard because I play on a field that I don't really belong on, right? Like
Mm.
there's all these big wrestlers and big wrestling companies, and there's these big comic book companies, and I'm just a guy that makes comics out of my bedroom. And I'm playing with these names that I might not, that are probably a little bit out of my league, so to speak, but you're sort of at the mercy of what everybody does, right? So if AEW decides they're going to do for instance, right, like this next weekend, I'm doing GalaxyCon Columbus, and
Nice.
now they're hosting AEW there. So, you know, I don't have any control over that. And now there's going to be, like probably maybe 15 to 20 extra wrestlers at that show that now I have to compete with. And that's never usually great for me because you can buy my stuff online, but you can only meet people in that moment. So that always can be tricky for me, right? So like that's a decision that was made by companies that are way bigger than me. It's whatever. You just have to react.
Yeah.
right? Like I wanted to, I had a big project that I had put together with a WWE talent that we were trying to get made, and then WWE squashed it.
Mm.
And it's just a matter of, I don't know, that part of it can be tough for me because, it's like it's the movie Pacific Rim, right? There's a giant robot fighting a giant monster, and I'm the little guy in the rowboat at their legs, like just trying
Uh,
to hold on.
yeah.
So, I mean, and nobody does what I do for the most part. Like, I mean, there's nobody that does what I do. There are people that make wrestling comics. AEW just did a little wrestling comic for San Diego Comic Con
Hmm.
as like a giveaway or whatever. But like, there's nobody that does what I do.
Yeah.
I
You're
don't think
Mike
there's
Kingston.
anybody that can do what I do, and that's fine. But so I don't necessarily worry about it from that perspective. I just worry about it sometimes. Wrestling and comics are two of the biggest sort of like brand slave fan bases, right? Like it's Marvel or DC, and it's AEW, which is
Mm.
WWE, and
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes to get people that sort of that binary situation. So
Mm-hmm.
for a long time for me, the Ring of Honor was the sweet spot because I knew those people liked wrestling, but also were open to sort of non-corporate wrestling. And now, obviously AEW owns it. It's trickier, but
Mm-hmm.
it's I mean, I find I find I find my readers. Because I go to them. I do 30 shows a year, and
Yeah.
I go out and put my books in people's hands, and it's not the most efficient way to do it, but that's the way it's got to be done.
Yeah.
So,
Word of mouth, just getting in front of the people, it's a lot better than like paying for ads on Instagram or something. So, yeah.
well, I mean, I do some of that too. You know what I mean? Like you always gotta be fluid.
Yeah.
I had in 2016, like I had so many stories lined up with guys, and then like WWE went on their like sort of warehousing binge, and they
Mm.
signed all these guys, right? Like, and so like I had something lined up with Nakamura, and I lost it. I had something lined up with Shayna Baszler, and I
Mm.
lost it. And I sure could have done something. I've known Kevin Owens forever. Like we would have done something. There's just a bunch of stuff, and then all of a sudden everybody's under contract. I don't expect anybody to risk their $1 million contract for my,
Of course.
independent comic book. Like I fully understand those decisions, but like there's a lot of times I mean, there's a whole podcast about the opportunities that I lost.
Mm. Yeah.
Probably just incredible opportunities either due to contractual stuff or people dying or whatever. Just it's it's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, things are looking to change. WWE has been in a constant season of change since Triple H taking things over. Uh, they got this whole thing with TNA, and that's made a tunnel for guys like Alex Shelley to be a tag team champion right now. And hopefully that means that they will get more cool with what they allow their wrestlers to do outside of the ring.
I don't think that's how it's going to go.
You don't think
I
so?
mean, they're a publicly traded company, and I think they've been a publicly traded company for a long time. But when the McMahons were in charge, it was like a family company, right? Like
Mm.
they were never going to let WWE fail. They were in it because it was their life, and now it's just part of TKO.
That's right.
And so what happens if the business takes a dip, right? Are they going to keep all their guys? Are they going to cut a bunch of people? Like and I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be different. I mean, that's a story to be told perhaps, but I've seen some things. Like I think there was a grace period and everybody was just happy that the booking was good,
Mm.
but I can see them being, I mean, obviously I don't feel like they should have squashed the story that I had set up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say I don't think they could. I mean, they did, whatever. I mean, obviously they did. So, um, it's just I can see them being more of the same, or maybe being. I mean, there are certain ways that they are more difficult that I've encountered.
Okay.
So, but you just don't know, right? Like everything evolves and everything changes and
Yeah.
whatnot. But in my experience, I feel like the more and more money they make, the less uh because they got to make more money every year, right? So I feel like the more and more money they make, the less likely they're going to be to allow their talent to do outside stuff, unless you're sort of maybe if you're paying a big cut of it, it's
Mm,
somebody they're not using or something like that or whatever. If there's something that benefits them, but I
yeah.
don't necessarily know because the project we got squashed on was a charity project.
Oh,
So it wasn't even like a for profit. So
that
it's
that really does suck. Yeah, that's
yeah, it's not
complicated.
great. But it is what it is, So we'll see. I mean, everything changes and
Yeah.
whatever it is today might not be that way tomorrow. And I've been doing this long enough to I think have a enough of a perspective on things. So I just, I just try to hold on to my the edge of my boat and hope I don't flip over.
Yeah, I mean, as you explain all this, I'm recognizing that you do have some pretty deep feet into the industry and how it works, especially compared to someone like me. And so, yeah,
Well, when they
I
tell you the
trust you
internet
and
doesn't know shit, I assure you the internet doesn't know shit. I
gotcha,
can tell
man.
you there's so many things that just never get reported or never come out or whatever. Just, that, and this isn't like a humble brag, whatever. It's just I know people and people talk and whatever.
Yeah,
So like, but there's a lot of things for a variety of reasons that don't get reported, right? Like if you don't, you don't want to lose your access. I mean, it's the same thing with politics and stuff, right? Like everybody's doing the access thing now. If you publish something unfavorable, or if you, I mean, I know examples of people that have posted things that that both companies did not want out, and they are not welcome any longer. And it's not even like bad stuff. It was just breaking news that they didn't want broken at that time that they were going to break later or whatever. So,
yeah.
but like, yeah. And now those people aren't allowed at the shows. So it's tricky. But yeah, I mean, when I tell you the internet doesn't know shit, the internet really doesn't know shit.
Gotcha. Yeah. You know what? Sometimes it goes without saying, but we all like a good reminder sometimes, that the internet does not know squat about anything sometimes. But hey, so you are almost at 60% for backing this newest project with Friday Night Bigfoot, correct?
Yeah, we're
Six,
just under.
just under. Okay. And well, this comes out on Friday, and so you'll have about 20, 21 days, about 3 weeks left to get it backed. Um, this is like your eighth, uh, what's the word for it?
Kicks,
Crowdfunder. Yeah,
yeah,
right? This is your
Kickstarter,
eighth
crowdfunder. Yeah.
crowdfunder. What happens in the case that crowdfunders just don't go your way?
I mean, I've never had it happen.
Okay, great.
Honestly, this is the this has been the slowest one so far, and I think part of it is, when I started, the first one I did was I want to say 2015. Social media was so easy and it was so fun, and like I could just make a post on Facebook, and I would get like three or four backers. It was so easy. Our
Nice.
first one hit for $27,000.
Nice.
Um, and it's just over the years, and I think you see it everywhere. Um, that companies are just they just want everything for themselves, and they don't
Mm,
want people, so now like you have to avoid using certain words in Facebook to to not get your post throttled. And even then, like it's still not. I mean, the algorithm in Facebook is brutal now. I mean, Twitter has been destroyed. I mean, Elon Musk
mm.
destroyed Twitter.
Yeah, that's not even.
And I mean, the
Yeah.
algorithm is bad, but like a ton of people left, and it's tough. I mean, like I'm paying for a blue check mark for, ideally to have my post prioritized, and I get the same four people, and I have 13,000 followers. So, or 11, or whatever. I think I have 13,000 followers. And like, I mean, it's the same four people that are looking at everything. So like, it's just tough. Like, because there's
Yeah.
so many people on social media now that it's their life to be on social media. So they tweet a ton, and then the algorithm favors them because they tweet so much, or they post pictures to Instagram. And obviously Instagram favors uh, visual stuff. I mean, it just more so. I mean, it tends to favor attractive people beyond over attractive artists or art. So
Yeah.
it's a trickier one. But I also find that right now, it's the easiest. I mean, to me, it's the easier one to get to get traction on. But so that part of it has been really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So this has definitely been the toughest. And I mean, it's a horrible time of the year, but like I had a bunch of money put into this, and I kind of needed to have it done. I didn't really want to wait until mid-January to launch it. So I sort
Hmm.
of, there were a bunch of circumstances that sort of delayed my launch. Like I really wanted to have this. I mean, I wanted to have it launched at New York, and then I wanted to have it launched at Twin Cities, and just a bunch of stuff happened that I got tied up in that did not allow me to do that. So then it came to a point where I kind of just had to do it because otherwise I wasn't going to get it done in the this year. So I know the timing isn't ideal, but there's tons of people that are making. I mean, the heavy metal just launched on Kickstarter, and I think they got like $300,000 already.
Mm.
So I mean, there's money to be had. It's just whatever. It's just a tougher slog. And then
Yeah.
obviously once you combine that with the throttling of the social media and whatever, like it's just been this has been tougher. This has been much harder than I anticipated. So call me a little flat-footed if I'm being honest.
It's all good, man. I mean, ever since meeting you, Mike, you've been yourself. You've been honest, you've been transparent, and I really appreciate that about you, man.
I don't really know how
So,
to be anything else.
exactly, exactly. And so, from my surface level, you'd think that maybe even having a crowd fund around the holiday season, being like, "Hey, get some comics for Christmas," that might be something that could help, but who
But it's also
knows?
not gonna fulfill before Christmas.
Ah, that's true. Yeah.
So, and that's what makes it tough. But I mean, the problem with comics are expensive, right? Like every page of a comic is a couple $100 of art, lettering, whatever. That's even before you print them. So
Mhm.
like, I mean, a lot of the trades, I mean, a lot of my Kickstarters, I don't make money on. I get a chunk of it, right? Like I get
Yeah.
kind of a chunk of what I need to pay for my artist, to pay for my printers. Then I eat some of it, knowing that I'm going to make it up when I start hitting the road and slinging it. But it's it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to because it's always different. You know what I mean? Like you never, and that's the hard part about everything for me. Just being one guy that does, I do everything but draw, and letter. I mean, obviously, but like, I everything changes and you always have to be up on it. You have to be ready to pivot. You have to be ready to react, on a dime. And,
Yeah.
my last Kickstarter before this, I did for Tales from the Road Volume 3. We made $18,000, which at the time, kind of a disappointment. But
Oh.
like I had run it short, um, and I ran it for 21 days, and it happened to be the 21 most like impactful days of wrestling all at once. Like everything happened in those 21 days. The Rock came back to WWE for the first time. The UFC WWE merger happened. Edge jumped to AEW. Jade jumped to WWE. Like there was the firing that included Ziggler and Mustafa Ali. There was something else. I think Punk got fired. Um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it all happened while my Kickstarter, like every day there was something, and it was impossible to get bandwidth. They're like, hey, look at my book, because everybody was just shouting about all this stuff that was happening, all this like,
Yeah.
big historical stuff. And it just happened to be, it happened to be rough timing. And then Adam Cole had a story in the book, and then he got hurt right when we launched the campaign. So then he was dealing with that, and then obviously it kind of hurts to not have him be able to promote it, right? Like, so it's just there's a lot of like I said, just I'm a little guy, and there's a lot of things that affect me in big ways. So
Mm. Yeah.
you just try to react.
Yeah. I think you touched on. See, I have no idea what it takes to make a comic book. I've always been a little bit interested, but you're giving a little bit of insight. So, comics in the making of, you say that's like it's always different when approaching something new.
I mean, everything is what it is at that moment, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like comics could be something different. I do. It's funny because I do panels about breaking into comics at shows. I did one at Twin Cities. Um,
Nice.
but some of it's inspirational, some of it is instructional. But like a lot of times people have a very narrow idea of what comics are. They think it's Marvel and DC, it's superheroes, it's printed stuff, you know. But like webtoons, there's more people that read webtoons than probably anything. And Scholastic, right? Like the things that move that like people, you know, are things that nobody ever talks about in the comic book media per se. Because so it's tricky. People have a real stunted idea about what comics are. Like if you talk about comic book movies with somebody, they're gonna say Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever. Like nobody's gonna say History of Violence, Ghost World, Road to Perdition, but those were all comic books before they were movies. But you don't think of them as comic book movies because we conflate the idea of superheroes with comic books in the same way a lot of people conflate WWE with wrestling. So it's interesting that I'm in sort of the middle of
Yeah.
uh, these mediums that both have sort of the same problem, sort of dominated by this sort of singular aesthetic, and then I'm doing sort of a double independent thing. So I'm not just a niche; I'm like a double niche.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's you know it's tricky, but I make the things I want to make, and I make them on my terms with the people I want to make them with, and maybe I could probably make more money if I worked with a publisher or whatever and or have wider audience, but I like to I like to be creatively fulfilled, you know. In the best of all circumstances, making comics is a fist fight. And you know, so if I'm gonna do that stuff, I want to make the stuff I want to make. And right now I want to make a book about Bigfoot getting trained to wrestle.
Yeah, man, that is just like one of my favorite parts of just being in something so creative too. Like I want to do what I want to do, and the beauty in that is like even though you're in a double niche, what's so awesome is that when people find you, you can almost get like a super passionate cult following of what people like about what you make, you know? Like this is exactly what I'm looking for type of stuff, you know?
But it's
And
interesting too because the people that aren't tribal and the people that haven't made it their entire personality, I think are the ones that are easy enough to float out of it. Where they're like, ah, you know, I enjoyed it, but you know, so like, I mean, there's the people that have like the tattoos and the, you know, they're fighting online and whatever. Like, those people are probably in it for life because they've made it a central tenet to their personality.
yeah.
Whereas, you know, I write books for people who are like, yeah, I like wrestling. It's pretty cool. You know, it's cool art form or whatever. But then, you know, sometimes I think those people aren't necessarily as hardcore. But also, the one lucky thing is in 15 years, I've never really gotten any of the wackadoodle fandom types. So that's been good. You know, I've got friends that work for Marvel and DC, and I mean they have horrible things get said
Oh,
to them.
really?
You know what I mean? Like I've had friends where people have been like, you know, I'm gonna, you know, if you don't do this with my character, you know, like threaten suicide or whatever. I mean,
Whoa.
it's a
Yeah.
lot, you know, and I mean, people have more access to people through social media than they've ever had. You know, it used to be right. You'd mail a letter to the thing, and maybe you'd get your letter published in a comic book, and maybe somebody would answer. You know, now it's you know you can just write to your favorite creator and be like, "Yo, I hate what you're doing, you piece of shit." So,
Yeah.
and that happens a lot, you know, and people don't talk about it because you know it sucks, and you don't want to encourage people.
Yeah.
Sometimes you know you raise awareness, and you're just giving some people ideas that didn't have it yet.
That's really good actually. Like the word awareness. Yeah. I didn't even think about that as a possibility. Like people having like being a writer for a Marvel character and then immediately being responsible for something that they shouldn't be responsible for and how they write that character. It's
Well,
really
these
weird.
characters have existed since the 70s, and
Yeah.
they've had several different incarnations. And there's people, you know, there's I notice it in wrestling too. You know, a lot of fans don't have patience for a payoff. You know, they're like, oh, I want this right away. I want it now, whatever. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you got to wait. And sometimes people just want their favorite character to be super powered and, you know, kick the crap out of all the other characters and whatever because they've made their fandom a central tenet of their personality. And that's always when it's dangerous, right? Like I think you can love anything and you can love anything with all of your heart, but I think once that becomes who you are, And that's a problem. Then you're attacking that person, right? You're not just attacking, you're not just writing a character differently. You're offending them on a, you're offending them down to their DNA.
Yeah.
And so that's what makes it tough. Um, and I get it. It's a lot easier to just be like, yo, I'm a Batman fan than it is to have like a real functioning personality because that involves a little bit of risk and taking some sort of, whatever. So a lot of times people, and it's not just comics, right? Like sports fans do it and whatever. There's tons of people that just sort of build their personalities around some sort of fandom instead of, being a functioning human.
Yeah. Well, I love all that. Let's once again, can you let the good people know where we can find where to back your latest project?
If you go to Kickstarter, Kickstarter.com, and you search for Friday Night Bigfoot, um, it's the only campaign named Friday Night Bigfoot. We've got lots of cool stuff. We have 4 different covers by Tony Gregori did like a mock wrestling cover. Andy Bollinger did a cover that's sort of a takeoff of that famous sort of Bigfoot photo, only we give a guy, with a wrestling belt and paparazzi. Maria Wolf did an incredible piece with Bigfoot doing a backbreaker to a hapless jobber, and I think Maria Wolf she's one of the, if she's not the best cover artist in comics, she's definitely on the Mount Rushmore. And Will Robson did a Ultimate Warrior riff with Bigfoot shaking the ropes, and it's incredible. So we have the 4 covers, and then we have a handful of limited edition metal versions of those covers that are super rare. And when this book takes off and whatever, then it's an investment, right? It's no worse than crypto, right?
Yes.
But
Get your stock with Headlocked Comics.
we have a shirt that has a really cool design on it, and that design's also on a tumbler. We have some stickers. I think. Let me look. I think all my drawn in. A lot of our bigger tiers are gone. That's one of the cool things is that we get a lot of people who really believe in us and back us heavily. But all 8 covers and everything is gone. Yeah, we had 4 tiers where you could be drawn into a crowd. Those are gone. But I think everything else is there. You can get all 4 metal covers. You can get all 8 covers. We have a retailer tier. If you're a retailer, you get all 4 regular covers. So there's still a lot of really cool stuff you can
Oh
get.
yeah.
And it's a dope book. And just if nothing else, you get a digital book for $5. So, I mean, obviously we have to sell a lot of those to make the $4 grand up we need to get to the end.
Yeah.
But whatever, everything helps.
Yeah. There's something for everybody at Headlocked Comic. That's awesome. So yeah, we could probably talk forever about corners of the industry and what you do, bro. And it's always so nice to talk to you. But let's keep it short and sweet so people, with all the podcasts that we do, people sometimes get intimidated, especially with like a 3-hour con episode.
Oh yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
want to make sure people hear the important stuff you got to say. So one last time, where can we find you, Mike Kingston?
I'm all over social media at Headlocked Comic. It's one word. It's all me. So if you got questions about anything, you can surely send me a message. I'm pretty good about following people back. I'm super good about following people back to interact with my posts. And but yeah, by all means, hit me up if you got questions. Check out the books. We've got I've also got a Vampiro book out that's coming. The issue 2 was supposed to be out today, but now it's coming out next week due to a shipping delay at Diamond.
Mm,
But we have a Vampiro Rockabilly Apocalypse book. We
that's
have
right.
Tales from the Road. We have our Headlock series. We have a lot of cool books if you like wrestling, and we got more stuff on the way.
That's awesome, Mike. Yeah, everybody back this man, please, please, please. Thank you so much, Mike. This episode will come out in a couple days. I appreciate your time always.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm always down to chat. You're a good dude.
Yeah,
It's easy conversation, so
appreciate it,
anytime.
man.